By the time the first wax packs of 1990 Topps baseball cards hit the store shelves that early spring, the pressure was already off the old gum company, OGC. And yet the pressure was also on like never before. All illusions of scarcity for their base brand had been cast to the wind during 1988 and 1989, when Topps cards were rumored to be found growing from sidewalk cracks in New York City and sprouting inside tumbleweeds outside El Paso. Even the loaded 1987 Top set was starting to lose its luster as collectors found cache after cache in junk shops and closeout bins across the country. Strangely, though, we didn't expect much from Topps. We were all still eager to hold new cards in our hands, same as every year. But this time we were prepared to scrutinize and compare Topps more than at any point since Fleer and Donruss entered the field in 1981. Because while all three companies were searching for the right path forward as the hobby boom continued, newcomers Score and especially Upper Deck had raised the bar on collectors' expectations. We were pretty sure that Upper Deck would deliver another top quality premium set, chock full of beautiful photography against a super clean design. But how would Topps respond to the swelling demand for top-notch collectibles? Chiclets in a wax pack. As we tore open those first waxy, topsy green packs, our hopes of a revolutionary new design from OGC was instantly dashed. Instead of a clean new look, Topps took an approach that only they could, which has worked well for them in most recent years. They stepped back into the past to revise a classic design. In this case, Topps reached back 15 years to channel the spirit of their controversial 1975 set, which featured the most colorful borders in the company's history. For their 1990 resurrection, Topps endowed each card front with a fairly uncluttered front that featured a large, full-color photo of the player surrounded by a thin, two-tone colored border. In the top left-hand corner, the team name was presented in a color that matched a box in the lower right-hand corner and contained the player's name in black letters, and in the upper or lower right-hand corner and in black or white print, depending on the attributes of the photo, was the Topps logo. If the card design had stopped there, or if the size of the photo had been expanded so that the thin inner border became the only border, then Topps might have had a blueprint to compete with Upper Deck and the coming ultra-premium sets, especially if the packaging included white cardstock and high-def photos. But Topps didn't stop there. Instead, wrapping each card in a razzmatazz border that featured one color in multiple shades, fading and dotting and strobing from dark to white to light and back again. Looking at the card was interesting, maybe even refreshing. Thumbing through an entire wax pack of 15 cards was jarring and made you feel like you were holding a Frankenstein representation of several different sets, much like the 1975 Topps baseball cards had done a decade and a half earlier. You might have even expected such a color explosion to be accompanied by a pack of fruity chiclets, but Topps opted instead for their normal slab of pink confection that only added to the perception that OGC was not quite ready to respond to the innovation of their challengers. Another big clue came when you turned over 1990 baseball cards, and it became obvious that Topps was sticking with their traditional soft brown cardstock. The result was a cardback that appeared dingy in comparison to the bright white stock of Topps competitors and left no doubt about its origins. Dominated by a mustard yellow background, the obverse of each 1990 card contains all the usual design elements, beginning with the card number in gray on black in the upper right-hand corner, perched atop a black Topps logo against a gray background. Next to the card number is a long gray box with the player's vitals and personal stats, and his name and position in gray against a black background, rounding out the top of the selection. As usual, the most prominent element of the back is the stats section, which occupies the bottom 80% and shows complete career numbers. For those players with just a handful of seasons to their credit, Topps squeezed in a biographical paragraph under the statistics. All in all, the 1990 Top set created an aesthetic that didn't leave much room for middle ground. Either you loved the garish borders or they gave you a headache. Based on anecdotal evidence, most collectors were reaching for the Tylenol bottle after slicing through a few wax packs that spring. But that didn't necessarily keep us from stockpiling the cards. After all, we had burning questions, like, what has 2,800 home runs and 2 Hall of Fame plaques and 13 names? The answer to that question would eventually be the 1990 Topps baseball set, or at least a handful of its key cards. In particular, Juan Gonzalez, 331, Ken Griffey Jr., 336, Frank Thomas, 414, Sammy Sosa, 692, Bernie Williams, 701, and Larry Walker, 757, all made their regular issue Topps debut in the first set of the new decade. All but Griffey were rookie cards, as the kid had made appearances in several 1989 base sets and the 1989 Topps traded box deal. While this lineup of rookie cards may not have created quite the buzz that the 1987's fabled group of youngsters stirred up, collectors had our eyes on these six guys from the very beginning, and it didn't take long for them to start cranking out home runs and establishing themselves among the best players of the 1990s. Add in hype surrounding the speedy Eric Anthony 608, multi-dimensional Marcus Grisham 714, and the big righty Ben McDonald 774, and there was plenty of rookie craze to fuel interest in the 1990s, regardless of how they looked. Of course, checking in at the usual 792 card count, Topps 1990 effort had plenty of room to include all the biggest names of the game. Among the hottest names at the time were Don Mattingly 200, Roger Clemens 245, Ricky Henderson 450, and Cal Ripken Jr. 570. And nobody was hotter in the early 1990s than Nolan Ryan, who had eclipsed the 5,000 strikeout plateau in 1999. Topps obliged to express hungry collectors by kicking off the set with 5 Ryan cards, starting with his base issue and following up with a 5,000K special showing Ryan with each of his 4 major league teams, the New York Mets, California Angels, Houston Astros, and Texas Rangers. Tonight, on a very special Topps baseball card. The Ryan onslaught on cards 1 through 5 was just the beginning of the subsets and theme cards peppered throughout the 1990 set. From All-Stars to Record Breakers to Manager cards, the issue had most of the Topps goodies that you could ever ask for. Here is a complete list of the specials you might find in your packs that spring and summer. Nolan Ryan cards number 1 through 5, Record Breakers number 6 through 8, Manager cards starting with number 21, Jeff Torberg, and seeded about every 30 cards thereafter. 6 checklist cards starting with number 128, All-Stars number 385 to 407, Turn Back the Clock number 661 through 665. About the only subjects missing were team cards, and it would have been impossible for Topps to settle on one border color for each club anyway. Get 'em this way or that, and get something extra. What Topps lacked in innovation in 1990, they attempted to overcome by offering a blinding variety of avenues through which their collectors could acquire their cards. Among these were the good old wax pack, which contained 36 to a box at 50 cents each. Traditional cello packs containing 30 cards for 89 cents and stacked 24 to a box. Rax packs offered 24 to a box containing 44 cards for $1.49. Jumbo cello packs, each containing 100 cards. Kmart blister packs loaded with 100 cards. Vending boxes with a whopping 500 cards. Factory sets in fairly plain white boxes. Christmas factory sets in stylish seasonal boxes. So as usual, Topps cards were everywhere throughout 1990, and most of these distribution options offered a little something extra for your patronage. In particular, you will find 1 of 22 glossy 1989 All-Star cards in each bracket pack, a glossy 1989 Rookies card very similar in design to the All-Star glossies, seeded 1 per jumbo pack, 1 of 22 batting leaders cards in each Kmart jumbo pack, a redemption card in wax packs that you could collect and send in for Topps glossies, consisting of 60 cards in all. It was basically the same lineup that Topps had in place throughout the late 1980s, and though these extras may not have excited veteran collectors, they did at least add some variety. They also gave us more to collect, and if there's one thing that collectors love, it's more. You can't read this subtitle because I forgot the ink, NNOF. Something else that collectors really dug in the early days of the hobby boom were errors and variations. If a player's name was spelled wrong and his height was listed, let's say at 5'2" instead of 5'10", we were all over it. And if those errors were corrected in later runs, ho ho ho, break out the good china, Mabel, 'cause we're in the money now. Errors, and especially variations, meant scarcity. One version would be less plentiful than the other, and that meant value. And while our error and variation mania may have subsided a bit by 1990, we were still vigilant enough to notice that. Darrell Evans' home run total was incorrect on card number 55. Card number 222, Kurt Stillwell, misspelled graduate. Sandy Alomar wasn't a junior on card 353. Marty Barrett slugged .056 in 1982, not .56. Checklist card number 376 didn't alphabetize Higuera correctly. Card number 496 credits Cecil Epsy with the wrong number of stolen bases for 1988. Mike Dunn, number 522, is listed with the wrong birth town. Card number 538 purports to show Billy Spears but actually depicts George Canale. Scott Scudder's card number 553 introduces us to hacker speak and secure passwords with a reference to Cedar Rap-One-Ids. Kurt Manwaring's 1988 stats on card number 678 were so enticing that Topps printed them twice. Sadly, Mark Parent, 749, did not bat .80 in 1987. The real figure was .080. Those were all interesting errors, and some were so glaring as to be laughable, but they weren't corrected. For collectors, that meant they were worth nothing, but not worth extra coinage. Card number 414 of Frank Thomas was a different animal, though. Not only was the pasteboard the rookie card of the number 1 draft pick, who looked like he might be something special, but collectors discovered early on that some of Thomas's cards existed with no player name on the front. While many hobbyists considered the Thomas card to be nothing more than a printing mistake, black ink left out of the process somewhere along the line, the no name on front, or the NNOF, variation was noticeably scarcer than the corrected version. Coupled with Thomas's rising star, investor speculation turned NNOF into the 90s version of C. Nettles and drove the card into four-figure territory. Most of the furor around NNOF has long since died down, but high-grade specimens can still fetch $1,000 or more. The original super premium baseball card. Topps may have relied on rookies and variations to generate whatever middling excitement they could in 1990, but they also continued a tradition that never really seemed to catch on in its day, but which many hobbyists thought should supersede the base set with each season. For its 7th consecutive year, Topps released a Tiffany set to accompany its normal 1990s Topps set. The Tiffany set was a complete 792-card copy of the base set, but printed on high-quality white stock and featuring a super glossy coating that made each card slick to the touch. It's not known exactly how many of the 1990 Tiffany sets were printed, but previous years saw between 10,000 and 25,000 of the premium issued, a far cry from the overabundance of the base cards. Often considered too expensive and unnecessary when they were released, the Tiffany sets gained in popularity as other premium issues became more popular in the 1990s and 2000s. Today, the Tiffany's enjoy a strong secondary market. One add-on that was always popular as soon as it was issued was the year-end Topps Traded set. The 132-card 1990 Topps Traded set never had the firepower of its 1982-83 counterparts, but it still offered collectors our first glimpse of Carlos Baerga, 6T, Travis Bryman, 33T, David Justice, 48T, and John Olerud, 83T, on OGC pasteboards. It also treated us to a strange sight of Dave Winfield, 130T, in a California Angels uniform. What's that worth in 1990 dollars? The 1990 set is one of the first that never experienced much of a price boost, as its rookies and superstars set off into the major league world to make names for themselves. Hobbyists had a pretty good idea from the onset that the cards weren't limited in any way, and there was enough options available that spring that the Rainbow set never generated much buzz. Even though Thomas' NNOF era couldn't do much for the overall prices since it wasn't part of the set and would generally only be found for sale as a single, the chase for missing black ink may have sold a few extra packs for a while, but the excitement was short-lived. So we're left with a set that debuted like all Topps issues of the era did, available in the $15 to $30 range depending on who was selling it and whether the set had been hand-collated or factory variety. And more than 25 years later, that's about where the issue stands. In fact, it's not uncommon to find complete runs for less than $15 and sometimes even under $10. No one will ever get rich by selling 1990 Topps baseball cards, but they're a colorful reminder of what life was like on the diamond during the pre-expansion years of the 1980s and early 1990s. If you're looking for an affordable time machine and memories of a simpler time, you can't do much better than these wax wrap chiclets. Like our video? Then like our videos and subscribe to our channel. waxpackgods.com